Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be talking about BT6, and BT6 offers us a lot of new and powerful cards to make some new and exciting decks and upgrade some current and existing decks. And today's deck I'm going to be talking about is going to be an updated version of the ShineGreymon deck. So ShineGreymon has been a very powerful Digimon since he came out all the way back in Special Booster 1.5, where he just has a very powerful removal ability, and he could DP boost himself, shoring up Yellow's big weakness of having a hard time of DP boosting their Digimon. So the fact that this card still just does a lot for playing into a more tamer-centric strategy is still just a very powerful thing to be doing, just because we have even more powerful tamers now to be interacting with and other cards to help support and push the deck forward. And just as a quick reminder, I am going to be hosting a Win a Playmat event on October 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so feel free to hop into my Discord and register for the event through Limitless Games and play on my Discord channel. Links to those will be in the description below. So without further ado, onto the deck profile. So starting off with the Digitamas, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Upamon. So Upamon is going to be the main Digitama of the deck because it has this nice generic inheritable ability of when attacking, if we have 3 or fewer cards in our security, then we get to draw 1 card, and drawing is really important, especially in this deck, making sure that we could see the cards that we need to see, because we are playing fewer Digimon in this deck compared to a lot of other decks, because a lot of that space is being taken up by tamers. So not only do we need to see the tamers in order to play them for free off of some of our other cards that allow us to play them for free, which is just very efficient, but we also need to be able to see our Digimon so that way we could be as consistent as we possibly can. And then as far as the 5th Digitama of the deck goes, it doesn't have to be Koromon. It could be really anything you feel like you want to be running. I just like what Koromon's doing because it has a very similar condition on triggering its ability as Upamon, where it's a when attacking ability once per turn. If we have 3 or fewer cards in our security, then one of the opponent's Digimon gets minus 1000 DP, which actually could matter depending on the matchup and depending on what the opponent's using. That extra 1000 could be used to help make or break certain deletions through DP reduction. Next, on to the rookies, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Patamon. So this Patamon is more powerful now than he was before, because we actually have more yellow tamers that we want to be digging for, and at least a 5th of the deck is going to be yellow tamers, so we need a way to search and dig those out, and the fact that BT-01 Patamon is going to act as the deck's dedicated tamer digger with his on-play ability to reveal the top 4 cards and add all yellow tamers among them into our hand, and the rest go to the bottom, is just that good. So the fact that we could take potentially multiple yellow tamers off of this ability is what's making him stand out versus a lot of the other tamer diggers that other colors have been using before, and the fact that we need to see our tamers as often and consistently as we possibly can makes this Patamon just that good to run. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Salamon. So this is the BT-02 version of Salamon, and this Salamon is still really important just because it's acting as the main way we're going to be recovering in the deck outside of one of our other cards. So what this card is doing is it has the nice on delete ability where if we have 3 or fewer cards in our security, then we get to recover 1. So for basically trying to suicide Salamon into the opponent's security, we're going to be recovering, and that's just really important because we need to keep our security as healthy as we possibly can, not only to try to put our tamers into the security using the recovery ability, so when the opponent hits into our security we don't have to play those tamers, but also just having that 1 extra hit point or security could make things a little bit more difficult for the opponent to try to come back from, because a lot of what this deck is doing is a comeback deck where you're not really worried about how bad your early game is. Your late game just is going to be that good to try to make a huge comeback and slowly turn the tide of the game in your favor, and Salamon just helps facilitate that. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Angewomon. So Angewomon is still just that good of a card to be playing just because it's a rookie with the Rush ability. So it's the cheapest and most efficient way that we have of playing Rush, and we do have lots of ways to gain memory in the deck, so it's not like hard playing it for 5 is completely out of the question, just because we have a whole bunch of different ways to actually play him. And using him for his rush ability to try to help push is what's making the card really, really good. Next, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Starmons. So Starmons is just another absolutely insane rookie to try to help push the control aspect of the deck, just because it has this very powerful on-play ability, where for each Digimon we have in play, one of the opponent's Digimon gets minus 1000 DP for the turn, so we could use this to stack up with our other DP reduction to make for some very powerful DP reduction plays. And then the last rookie of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Patamon. So this is probably one of the most important rookies, if not the most important rookie in the entire deck, because it has this really good inheritable ability where during your turn, once per turn, when an opponent's Digimon is deleted by having its DP reduced to 0, then you get to gain 1 memory. So the whole primary goal for playing this card is so we could evolve into ShineGreymon and not pass the turn, assuming we're going to be at 3 memory at the very least. So having Patamon help facilitate and promote that type of play just makes ShineGreymon more playable as a whole, and just having that extra 1 memory, even if we don't need it, could just help make and extend some of our other plays to make even more powerful plays happen. Next, on to the champions, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Turuiemon. So Turuiemon's in the deck just because we only care about the fact that he evos for 1, and nothing else about the card really matters. The 6000 DP is a pretty okay stat line to have, just because if we do need him to aggress with, then 6000 DP is better than most of the other level 4s, but as I mentioned before, we really only care about just evoing into this card, so that way we could get into our higher stages as efficiently as we possibly can. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Patamon. So Patamon is another card that we really care about because he does evo for 1, making him, again, another really tempo-efficient card to digivolve into and digivolve past, so that way we could try to get up into our higher stages as quickly as we possibly can with, but he also has the upside of having the blocker ability, so if we just want to use him as a way to just get a cheap blocker on the field, then that's just a really good line of play to think about also. The only unfortunate thing about Patamon is the fact that he has 5000 DP, and 5000 DP is a little bit more susceptible to a lot of forms of removal in the format, so he's not as good as something like Unimon in terms of being the main blocker of the deck, but the fact that he could be a tempo-efficient card and is still a blocker makes him a very good card to be using. Next, I'm going to be running 1 copy of Mimikmon. So Mimikmon is a really interesting card to think about playing in this style of deck. We really are going to be using Mimikmon because of his on-play ability, where if we have 3 or fewer cards in our security, then we're going to be gaining 2 memory, which means he's basically a level 4 that hard plays for 2, and that's just really efficient to just have a good way of getting a level 4 onto the field, on top of him naturally costing a little bit lower than your average level 4 already. Just means that he's a good card to just hard play and digivolve up into your higher levels with, again, trying to facilitate that line of play where we just want to get into our higher stages as quickly as we possibly can, and Mimikmon being one of the most efficient level 4s that we have to be playing around with means that he could be really, really good at accomplishing that task. And then the last champion of the deck is going to be 3 copies of Unimon. So Unimon is going to be the deck's dedicated blocker just because it's a better blocker than Patamon. So the stat difference between 5000 and 6000 DP actually is starting to matter more and more. So the fact that Unimon is just a stronger blocker as a whole means that he's going to be the deck's dedicated blocker, and we'd rather not digivolve on top of him if we could avoid it, just because we still do have a limited number of blockers in the deck. It's just Unimon is the primary one we want to sit on the field because he does have that higher DP. Next, on to the ultimates, I'm going to be running 3 copies of RizeGreymon. So this is the red RizeGreymon from BT-04, and this card is a really good card to be using because he has this main ability of Digiburst 2, so we have to get rid of 2 of his inheritable sources in order to utilize the ability to play one of our red or yellow tamers for free with a play cost of 4 or less from our hand. So having a free way of playing our tamers is just very, very powerful for the deck to be doing, because we do want to have as many tamers on our field as we possibly can to make ShineGreymon as strong as he possibly can. And the fact that RizeGreymon also acts as a yellow Digimon while he's on the field means that we could hide him in Raising, move him out, use his Digiburst ability to play a tamer, and then Digivolve him right up into ShineGreymon right afterward. So that's just a very powerful line of play to be doing. And he also has a nice inheritable ability of adding a when attacking ability. If we have a tamer in play, then one of the opponent's Digimon gets minus 2000 DP for the turn, which could help add to the overall DP reduction that we're trying to do for the big turn we're digivolving into ShineGreymon. So he's acting as another really good card to help add to the control aspect of the deck, on top of being able to play our tamers as efficiently as we possibly can. Next, I'm going to be running 3 copies of RizeGreymon. So this is the BT-02 version of RizeGreymon, and this RizeGreymon is acting very similar to the BT-04 version, where the whole goal of utilizing these cards is to be able to play our tamers as efficiently as we possibly can. So this RizeGreymon's ability is on a when digivolving ability versus a digiburst ability, so there is a different way that we want to play these cards, but his when digivolving ability states that we get to play 1 yellow tamer from our hand for free, but we don't get its on-play abilities. So this could impact some of the tamers that we want to be using, and the Digiburst RizeGreymon allows us to actually use their on-play abilities, so we do want to play different tamers off of these Digimon, and we do have different ways we want to utilize these Digimon. So this RizeGreymon is really good if we just want to digivolve our champion on our field into RizeGreymon, hopefully not pass the turn, to digivolve into Shine, to try to control the field with Shine and not care about the fact that we're going to be passing the turn. So that's just how this version of RizeGreymon wants to be played, where the BT-04 version of RizeGreymon wants to be played out of Raising. You just build them up in Raising, move them out when you're ready, Digiburst, and then basically do a very similar style of combo play. So they do have their differences on how they want to be played and what tamers we want to play off of them. And then on top of that, this RizeGreymon also has a really good inheritable ability of while we have 3 or more tamers in play, then this Digimon gains security attack +1. So this is what's allowing us to deal lots of additional damage onto the opponent, because yellow kind of lacks damage for the most part. Its damage tried to comes from a more chip style strategy where we're trying to control the field and then chip them away, and the fact that we actually do have a way of increasing our overall damage output on our megas means that our megas are going to be that much more threatening while this RizeGreymon is underneath them. So that just adds to the overall power of what the deck is trying to do, on top of being a RizeGreymon to try to play our tamers as efficiently as we possibly can for Shine to be that much stronger. And then the last ultimate of the deck is going to be 2 copies of Angewomon. So this is kind of a flex spot of the deck. It doesn't necessarily have to be Angewomon. I just really like what Angewomon is doing because she has this nice when digivolving ability where one of the opponent's Digimon gets security attack -2 for the turn. So that could be pretty good at trying to prevent them from attacking into our security. And then on top of that, she also has a really powerful inheritable effect, which is the main reason why we want to play this card, because it's when attacking ability where if you have 3 or fewer cards in your security, you get to play 1 yellow level 3 Digimon from your hand for free. Could just be that important for the deck because we do have lots of powerful on-play abilities that we do want to trigger off of our rookies, and there's no better way to play our rookies than for free off of this Angewomon to trigger their abilities. Next, on to the megas of the deck, I'm going to be running 4 copies of ShineGreymon. ShineGreymon is going to be the main mega of the deck because the deck is solely focused and centered around what this card is doing and trying to play to his strengths the best it possibly can be. So ShineGreymon has 2 very powerful abilities. His first ability is a when digivolving ability. You get to suspend all your yellow tamers, and then for each yellow tamer suspended this way, you get to activate the following ability of one of the opponent's Digimon gets -4000 DP for the turn. So if you have 1 tamer, then it's -4000, 2 tamers, it's 8000, so on and so forth. So with 3 tamers at the bare minimum, you could delete a lot of the opponent's potential level 6 Digimon, and with a 4th tamer, you could even delete as high as level 7s. So this is just a very powerful control style card that also could be used to separate the damage in case you're going up against more rush style decks trying to go lower to the ground. You could use all of your tamers to basically machine gun all of the opponent's Digimon away with his ability. So just the flexibility of how we could control the opponent's field makes him very, very strong for us just having lots of tamers in play. And then on top of that, he also has another ability where during your turn, this Digimon gets plus 1000 DP for each tamer you have in play. So that again is really, really powerful because yellow doesn't have a whole lot of ways of DP boosting their Digimon, making them a little bit on the riskier side to swing into the opponent's security with. So he is just the complete package on what a really powerful boss monster is supposed to do, making him just that good of a card to be playing still. And then the last mega of the deck is going to be 2 copies of Dynasmon. So this is another flex spot. It doesn't necessarily have to be Dynasmon. I just like what Dynasmon is doing because he's a very powerful card to be playing with the deck, because he's adding some recovery and he's adding some consistency to what the deck is trying to do. So his Wind Digivolving ability is really strong, where we get to trash the top card of our security stack to reveal the top 6 cards of our deck, and then add up to 2 level 6 or lower Digimon from among them into our hand, and then trash the remaining cards. So we are sacrificing one of our security to get this powerful digging ability to trigger, to try to make sure that we could find key pieces to set up for a whole new stack and try to make for a very powerful Shine play in the future. So I do really like it, that first ability alone, and reducing our security isn't that bad because it could put us within threshold for certain abilities of ours to even trigger. And then on top of all of that, he has an additional ability where it triggers during all turns once per turn. When a card is removed from our security stack, if we have 3 or fewer cards from our security, then we get to recover 1. So off of his own ability, we're already going to be removing a card from our security stack, meaning if we're hitting that threshold, then he's just going to allow us to recover 1, meaning we're not really losing a security and potentially gaining more cards off of his ability in combination with each other. But this does actually have some pretty cute combo play with TK, where if we're just sitting at 3 security and we have a TK that we just hard played with Dynasmon on the field, then even though TK's ability is netting us 0 cards lost in our security, we could still use Dynasmon to potentially gain an additional security. So he does have some good combo play and synergy with what the deck is trying to do, on top of being just a very highly statted level 6 to be playing, making him a slightly beefier body than some of the other options we could be using. Next, onto the options, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Wyvern's Breath. So Wyvern's Breath, for all intents and purposes, is going to be Yellow's Gaia Force, so it's just acting as the big hard removal card, allowing us to reduce one of the opponent's Digimon's DP by 15,000 for the turn, with the security ability activating its main, making it just a very strong card to be using. And then lastly, onto the Tamers, I'm going to be running 4 copies of TK. So this is the BT-01 version of TK, and this TK is going to be acting as the main memory fixing tamer for the deck. So if our memory is ever less than 3, he'll just always hard set it to 3, and we're basing a lot of our plays on the assumption that we're going to be having 3 memory, because we want to have this TK on the field. And then this TK has another bonus on playability that we could utilize, where we get a look at our security stack, reveal 1 card from among it, and add it into our hand, and if that card is yellow, then we get to recover 1 and shuffle our security stack. So it's just acting as some more consistency for the deck, allowing us to essentially use our security as an additional hand to try to pull cards from. Next, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Kari. So Kari is another really good tamer to be running for the deck because she has this nice ability where at the start of your turn, if we have 3 or fewer cards in our security, then we get to gain 1 memory, allowing us to potentially gain lots of memory so we can make even more powerful plays happen because we have lots of memory to be utilized. And this card does stack, so the more Karis we have, the more potential memory we could gain with her, making our turns just that much more powerful as a result. And then the last tamer of the deck is going to be 3 copies of TK and Kari. So TK and Kari is the brand new duo tamer to come out in BT-06, and this card is another really good card to be using for the deck. So what this card is doing is it has the nice ability where at the start of our turn, if we have fewer cards in our security than the opponent's, then we get to gain 2 memory. So it's just another way to gain lots of additional memory at the start of our turn, and we do have ways of lowering our own security, so that way we could get to the this ability off more consistently. And on top of that, it also has another ability, which, depending on the state of the game and when this card is played, could do lots of work for us, because it triggers during your turn. When one of your yellow Digimon attacks, you get to suspend this tamer to have one of the opponent's Digimon's DP reduced by 1,000 for the turn. So during the early game, this could help add some extra control elements while we're waiting for Shine, and then when Shine comes into play, we don't even have to use this ability to suspend the tamer for 1,000, because Shine will reduce it by 4,000 just for suspending it himself. So this is just another really good card to try to gain us lots of memory and act as a really good card to be using throughout different stages of the game with. And then there are still just more ways that you could customize and change the deck to your liking, all based on what you want to play and what style of play you want to be supporting and promoting that complements ShineGreymon. So you could use Lopmon to try to use her ability to reduce your own security and trigger some of those abilities off that way. And for doing so, you get to draw 2 cards, and at worst, you get that information on what the top card of your security is. Then you have the promo Patamon to act as some additional healing in case you are in fear of not having enough recovery to try to keep yourself in the game longer. Patamon is pretty good in the late game for just recovering 1. And then you also have Pulsemon to think about, just because Pulsemon is an insane card to be playing because of all of the different ways that we could use the card, depending on what stage of the game we're in and what our security is looking like. Then you also have other really decent champions if you want to try to actually utilize your champions for some inheritables. So GeoGreymon is one of the better inheritables that we could be playing around with, just because we're naturally going to want to play our tamers anyway, and he helps add to the overall control aspect of the deck by adding some extra DP reduction. Then if you want, you could even think about running Bulkmon just for some early game aggression, because the opponent would know that we're yellow and they don't want to attack into us as quickly as they might want, and they want to leave us at a particular security threshold, so that way our abilities won't trigger, and we could maximize that type of potential by playing Bulkmon to try to have him hit for as hard as he possibly can, with him trying to gain the security attack +1 ability. Then if you want something a little bit more tempo efficient in your ultimate slot, then you do have ShineGreymon to play around with, just because it has a low play cost and low evo cost, and you even have other options in terms of RizeGreymon to add to the overall control aspect of what the deck is trying to do, with his own Digiburst ability of reducing the opponent's Digimon's DP by 4,000, with another upside of gaining 1,000 for being at 3 or less security, which could be really good depending on your supporting Mega, but it also could be good with Shine in case we don't have enough tamers in play yet. Then a really good supporting Mega for the deck is going to be RizeGreymon, just because RizeGreymon is just that good of a card. His one ability does 3 different things. He unsuspends himself, he adds a card from our security to our hand, reducing our security and basically drawing us a card, and he reduces one of the opponent's Digimon by 6,000 DP. So that's just a lot to take advantage of, all depending on the type of support you want to be giving him and the changes in the deck you make because of him. And then on top of that, you also have Turuiemon to act as some additional control, just because her ability to basically give the opponent's Digimon -3 security attack when they're moving from their raising area to the battle area could shut off OTK type strategies, which could be very, very important, because if the opponent just hits all of our security and we're unable to recover or respond fast enough, then we're in some huge trouble. So Turuiemon could help turn off certain lines of play that would promote that type of loss. And on top of that, she also is pretty good because of her other ability to reduce the opponent's security Digimon by 3,000, basically making her act like a 14k when she's swinging into the security, which is a pretty safe swing on a level 6 body. Then, if you wanted to run a level 7, we do have access to Chaosmon Volderarm, just because its when Digivolving ability of reducing the opponent's Digimon's DP by 7,000 twice is just that good, so we could use this on 2 separate Digimon to possibly delete them, or we could use this on 1 Digimon to delete 1 big target, with a nice upside of on delete gaining 3 memory to just make him even more obnoxious and annoying to be playing against. Then we do have some other really good options we could run in the deck. So Eden's Javelin is a really good card to act as some decent removal and draw at the same time, with a nice security ability of activating its main in case we want to play this in a more security control style of play where we're trying to force cards into our security so that way we could trigger them. The best cards that we want to force into our security are obviously our options and tamers, so this is just a good option to just try to force in the security. And then on top of that, we do have Glorious Burst. So Glorious Burst is just another option that combos with the fact that we want to play lots of tamers to delete one of the opponent's Digimon by 12,000 DP. It's not as strong as Wyvern's Breath, but it could potentially be cheaper than Wyvern's Breath. So it is just another possible option that you could think about using. Then we do have Reinforced Memory Boost, and Reinforced Memory Boost in this style of deck is actually insane. Looking at the top two cards and putting one into our hand and one into our security is already just that good because we're not only setting up our security, we're also setting up our hand, and it has the delay ability to potentially gain us 3 memory at a later turn, which is just really, really good because we could use that 3 memory to enhance and extend some of our plays, making more powerful plays happen as a result. And then if we are looking for consistency on our Digimon, we do have Yellow Memory Boost to possibly play for some very similar reasons why we would want to play Reinforced Memory Boost. It's just a cheaper version with a little bit less of a memory gain on its delay ability. And then another really good yellow tamer that we could play is going to be the starter deck TK. I don't think that the deck necessarily needs the starter deck TK because his ability isn't super relevant, considering a fifth of the deck is just dedicated towards our tamers, and then we do run a couple of options, so he's not necessarily the best in the world to be using, but he is a cheap and efficient tamer to just hard play and get another tamer onto the field. So even though ShineGreymon isn't going to be as powerful as he once was in previous metas, he's still a deck that you could play around with, and he could still perform relatively well just because what he was doing was already strong, and it's still a very strong strategy to be incorporating in BT6 just because removal is just that good, and any Digimon that could deal lots of damage and swing very safely while having a good removal ability attached to him still just makes the Digimon very playable. On top of having ways to make him an efficient Digimon to be using, all just adds to his overall playability, and I still think even for like a tier 2 or tier 3 deck, it's still a very fun deck to be playing around with, and it will get better in the future as more tamers get added and more tamers-based support get added into the game. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are a couple of different ways you could support me and the channel. So I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will go to supporting me and the channel. I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so when you buy a playmat with my design, then some of that money will also go to help supporting me and the channel. And on top of all of that, I do have a Twitch account over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so giving me a follow and a subscription also helps support me there, and I do play Digimon on top of various other games on that platform as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.